Billionaire entrepreneur and author of Our Biggest Fight, Frank McCourt, is launching a bid to buy TikTok. This news comes less than a month after President Biden signed a bill into law that would either force ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, to divest from the app, or the app would be banned in the United States. In our conversation back in March, McCourt sounded the alarm on big tech. Take a look back at our interview to learn more about the billionaire who is trying to buy TikTok. Hi everybody, I'm Brittany Lewis, a reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is founder of Project Liberty and author of Our Biggest Fight, Frank McCourt. Frank, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, it's great to be with you today on the launch of my book, Our Biggest Fight.
I want to first extend a big congratulations to Our Biggest Fight being out, hitting the bookshelves today. And I want to talk about the book, obviously, but I want to talk about the inspiration behind that. You're really raising the alarm bell on big tech, on the internet. What was the inspiration for you to put pen to paper here?
Well, like you and millions of others, I see the harms. I feel the harms, and I want to do something about it. And when I say harms, I'm talking about the fact that we're barely governable anymore. Our democracy is really struggling. We have a difficult time having civil conversations. We have an information ecosystem that's completely been contaminated and corrupted. And probably most importantly, we're seeing now the harms to children, and that's where I draw the line, and I say enough is enough. We have to fix this. And as a fifth generation builder, someone who's quite familiar with infrastructure and how it's designed and works, I think we have a infrastructure problem here, an engineering problem that we can fix. But more importantly, Brittany, I'm the father of 7 children, and that's what's really driving me.
You noted in the book that the internet began as a utopian dream. That was at the beginning of the book. That stuck out to me because I was in middle school and in high school when Facebook first becoming popular, and that was a way to connect with friends, post funny comments. You could not imagine what it is now, which is where a lot of people get their news. So it began as a utopian dream. What do you think it's morphed into?
It's morphed into this technology that's highly invasive. It's creepy, really, right? It's surveilling us 24 hours a day. It's scraping our data, and by our data, I mean our personhood, everything about us. It's aggregating that data, and then it's optimizing for what a few corporations want to optimize for. And if that's to get us to stay online more, or to feed us information that they've decided our personality is going to react to, or our makeup is going to react to. In other words, they know more about us than we know about us, and so it's become a very manipulative technology. Today is the 35th anniversary of the launch of the World Wide Web. It was March 12th, 1989. And as you say, it was launched as this incredible innovation, this incredible technology that was designed to connect all of us, to empower us, to give us tools to improve our lives, society's well-being, and the proverbial rising tide that was going to lift all the boats. And instead, it's become this highly centralized, very autocratic, very, very surveillance oriented, and kind of creepy technology that we're dependent on. So we're all using it, but it's not helping us, it's hurting us. And so what I talk about in Our Biggest Fight is that we can fix this problem. It's tech, it's infrastructure. We can fix it so that we're in charge now of our own data. We're in charge of our own digital lives, and we are leading digital lives now. The internet's not going away. We're not going to just toss it and start from scratch. So why don't we now make it better? Put individuals in control of their social graphs, their personal relationships, their personal data, and let's have a new internet where the new apps that get built are clicking on our terms of use for our data, rather than us mindlessly clicking on the terms of use of these big platforms and then giving up our personhood to them, giving up everything about us.
Today's a really interesting day because, as you noted, the 35th anniversary of the World Wide Web launching, and I'm sure when it was first launched, no one could understand the impact that it would have on today's world. What you're describing is something that has really become helpful to a lot of people, but also at the same time, it's like this double-edged sword where it's pretty insidious. Whose fault do you think this is?
Well, I think we can, it's really not, my focus, let me put it this way, my focus is not to look backward and to point fingers. We all know there's a big problem now. And even people that worked at these big platforms that have left and have shared their perspective have talked about the fact that these platforms know the damage that's being done. This is not just a bug. This is a feature of these platforms. It's to draw us in, is to addict us, is to manipulate us, and that's fundamentally wrong. That's a violation of our human rights, I would argue. And this is what I say in Our Biggest Fight, is that think about this as you know, for me, Thomas Paine was my inspiration, because in 1775 he took a complicated set of issues and it boiled it down to a choice. He said to people pre the United States of America, hey, look, you can continue to be subjects of some king who you've never met, right? And own nothing, be nothing. Or you could choose to be a citizen born with the same rights as that king. You know, so-called unalienable rights. You have rights, you have agency, you have authority, you have choice, you have liberty, you have freedom, you have the ability to own things. And thankfully, our predecessors chose citizenship and democracy and built the United States of America. So my question to you is, why on earth would we give up all those rights and become subjects again in the digital world, controlled now by not somebody in a robe and a crown, but rather these lords of these big platforms who have essentially stripped us of our humanity and have stripped us of our rights. You know, in the digital world, there's no difference between your biological DNA and your digital DNA. You know, one you're born with, the other is your lived experience. We are connected to the internet morning, noon, and night, and it shouldn't be a creepy thing that does harm. It should be something that's optimizing for the strength of democracy, optimizing for us to find real truth, real knowledge, and share it, optimizing for the safety of young children. Why should we give all that up just to use the internet? The internet's a tool that we built that we can alter the design now that we know how powerful it is and how dependent we are on it, so that it works in a way that is pro-people.
You sounded the alarm in the book. You sounded the alarm now. In the book, you said, in the internet era, you have been stripped of your rights, and you called your data your personhood. You touched on that a little bit now, but can you dive a little deeper? Can you talk about this, why they're synonymous?
Yeah, well, it's, you know, some people may think of the internet and their, you know, their data as this abstract, you know, this sort of like, what does it matter kind of thing. You know, I don't really, I can't see it, I can't hold it, I can't touch it. And what I really urge people to do, and this is what one of the points I try to make in the book, and I would ask people to spend a few hours, just a few hours, and read it and understand what's at stake here. Because these platforms know more about us, as I said, than we know about ourselves. So they know everything about us. And this, it's not just what kind of shoes we wear or where we shop. It's everything about us. You know, it's been said now that, you know, these platforms know you're going to break up with your significant other before you do. You know, they know intimate details of young women, for instance, and this is, you know, I want people to think about this as if I'm the head of the U.S. Postal Service. And I come to you and say, hey, I have a deal for you. I'm going to deliver your mail for free. No more paying for postage. I'm going to deliver your mail for free. You know, probably you'd be a little suspicious, but you'd say, tell me a little bit more. I want to know a little bit more about that. And you say, yeah, I'll deliver your mail for free, but I want to put cameras in every room of your home and in your car and follow you around and record everything you do. And you say, well, that's kind of creepy. I'm not sure I like that. And we say, then I say to you, well, but it's for free. It's for free. And you say, oh, there's one other thing. I'm going to open your mail, and I'm going to read it. And everything I learn, I'm going to go ahead and it's mine now, right? I'm going to capitalize on that. Your relationships are now my relationships. Your ideas are now my ideas. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to read your 13-year-old daughter's diary. And if I notice that she might be a little bit concerned about her weight, I've got products to sell her, right? And I'm going to actually take advantage of that vulnerability of a 13-year-old. Is that a business model that we want to celebrate? Is that something that we should be accepting of? I don't think so. And to me, this feels like we've been the frog boiling. You know what I mean? It's happened slowly, but now it's a crisis. And what I try to do in our biggest fight is it's a call to arms. It's to say to folks, let's do something about this. We must and we can.
That comparison is really interesting to the post office because no one, even regardless of if they're doing anything illegal, people respect their privacy. No one wants the mailman reading your letters, reading your 13-year-old's diary. You called this the most important issue of our time. What specifically is at stake here?
I'd say everything we love. Everything we love is at stake. If we love our children for sure, and I would say the most sacred metric of any society is, are we doing right by children? And now you poll young people and ask them, will your life be better than your parents? A majority of young people say no. That's all we need to know. We don't need any other statistic other than we're failing children and the next generation. And what's important to recognize is that we can fix this. This technology should be designed to operate for people, not for the machines of big tech. Why would we want to be dragged into a future by these machines when we can actually redesign how the technology works so that it's actually improving our lives? And so in 5 years from now, when you poll young children and say, will your life be better? They'll say, my life's going to be way better than my parents'. I'm going to live till I'm 150, and I'm going to live a healthy life. And look at what artificial intelligence is going to do when it's operated and designed with people first. But now we're seeing artificial general intelligence, and everybody's quite apprehensive. Why? We know the current version of the technology is broken, and I think people are rightfully concerned about making it more powerful. It's the same model. Why would we make a broken model more powerful? Why not fix the problem, then make it more powerful, and so that kids' lives are better and our democracy is stronger and our information ecosystem is flourishing. This is impacting all of us, and we as I said earlier, we all can see the harms, we feel the creepiness of it, but fortunately, there's something we can do about it. And in the book, I talk about how should we go about this. We don't have all the answers. I'm not implying that. But we're providing a roadmap for how you would go about fixing broken infrastructure. And just like we've done in my family, we've been doing it for over 130 years. Infrastructure gets improved as time goes on. And we demand it to be improved. If we have a plumbing system that's feeding water to 1 million people, and 600,000 of them are getting clean and healthy water, and 400,000 are getting toxic water that's making families sick and killing some people, we would be outraged. We wouldn't be saying, well, the internet does some good things and some bad things, but on a whole it does good. No, we'd be saying, fix it. And think of this. This is now part of our lives. This is very, very important, and we've seen the power of the internet. And it's time now that we've seen how it works, seen how much we depend on it, that we have it working in a pro-human way. So now we have to put the machines in a subordinate position and us as people in the superior position.
You lay it out in the book, but you're describing this as an infrastructure problem. You describe the book as a call to arms. You're really ringing the alarm bells here. How do we fix this as a society?
Well, we have to fix the technology, that's for sure. I lay the solution out in the book as to how we go about doing that. That starts at the protocol infrastructure level. And by the way, it's happening right now. There's hundreds of technologists now working on the fix, and they're working from all different kinds of places and perspectives, and so that's important. But I would also add, and this is where Project Liberty comes in, we also need to make sure we bring the social scientists into the conversation this time around, and not let the technology be designed by technologists alone. The technologists play a very, very vital and important role here, but they should be at the table with those that play other roles, like ethicists, like economists, like policy and governance experts, behavioral scientists, psychologists, etc., because this is powerful, powerful technology. And then lastly, we need to create a movement of some sort here. Do you remember Mothers Against Drunk Driving that showed up and said enough was enough? And they mobilized and they changed things. We need something like that, I believe, now, so that civil society can get involved. And so what I would urge people to do is read the book. As I said, it just takes a few hours. Go to ourbiggestfight.com and learn more about this and join the fight, because that's what's going to win this. This is not my biggest fight. This is our biggest fight.
To your comparison about this is an infrastructure issue, let's say there was a bridge in your local community that was broken, you would immediately call local lawmakers to fix it. But in the book you write this, quote, "This is a rights issue. If enough people make a stink about the right to their personhood, lawmakers will act." Can we look for a solution or more regulation, policy? What does that look like?
Well, it's we see that the same technology that I write about in the book is disabling our political system, and it's corroded our political dialogue. Our elected officials, if you talk about a road or bridge in the example you use, if there was a bridge that was failing, community would rise up, go to their elected officials and say, this bridge is failing, this piece of infrastructure that the public is supposed to be taking care of. You know, we rely on our cities and towns and states and federal government to do these things, and we would demand that it be fixed. Very clear. In this particular case, what we're asking, and have sometimes, you've seen all of the conversations and the hearings in Congress where people show up and there's incredible testimony about the harms being done, but then yet we have no policies to fix it. I'm afraid that we're not going to get the fix from our political environment at the moment, because it's this very same technology that's broken that is polarizing our politics. It's these elected officials are using the same social media, right, to take extreme positions. Why? It gets more followers, more clicks, more money from a fundraising perspective. And let's be honest, these big tech platforms are huge and powerful and rich, and they invest a lot of money in lobbying these politicians and so forth. So I think we need people to fight, people to join a fight, people to get engaged and demand that this be fixed, because sadly the big tech platforms who can fix this haven't fixed it. And then we've gone to the political system, and sadly we've seen hearings but no results, so they're not fixing it. So now I think we need to take things in our own hands, and that's what prompted me to write.
I think I really want to talk about where we are right now. As we sit here, we're about 8 months away from a presidential election. There are also wars unfolding throughout the world. So I am curious, can you talk to us about the threat that disinformation and misinformation poses to democracy, and how this is going to impact the upcoming election?
Well, yeah, let me answer that question in two parts. First of all, I think our presidential candidates should be talking about this issue very directly. I think this is the biggest issue that they should be talking about. Why? Because it underpins all the other issues that we want to deal with. We're not going to solve for climate change if we can't agree on the facts. We're not going to solve for immigration if we can't agree on the facts. We're not going to solve for gun issues if we can't agree on the facts. We're not going to solve for having a United States opinion and position regarding wars in Europe or the Middle East if we can't agree on the facts. So we need to fix this contaminated information system, which actually is designed to keep us in this mindless, triggered state of argument with two sets of facts, right? Not two opinions, which is fair game, but two sets of facts, which is highly disabling. So when we allow foreign actors to come in and spread misinformation and actually disinformation, right? This is intentionally spread poor, bad, wrong information to get us off track. That means we have a very, very bad design of the internet, right? That it shouldn't be so porous and so poorly designed that machine bots can spew false information into the internet. So how does democracy work? Democracy works on a basic, very simple principle called trust, right? And trust is built up over time by people and relationships sharing information and getting to the bottom of it. What are the facts here that we're talking about? You and I can fairly disagree and debate. That's been the American way, right? Lots of opinions, different opinions, and so forth, but we reach consensus. Technology today is designed for us not to reach consensus, right? Do you ever wonder why we seem like we're halfway divided, half on this side and half on that side, on every single issue? Well, it's because the algorithms are working perfectly to make sure we don't reach consensus. Because if we reach consensus, then we don't have to keep on defending ourselves and staying online and just continuing to be triggered and so forth. So I think, to me, what I find as an American and whose family has helped build this project, literally sleeves rolled up, hands dirty, build this project. I'm saddened by the fact that our technology has been exported to other democracies around the world and is allowing that same dis and misinformation to spread, making it hard for all democracies right now to function, because democracies are based on truth and trust. And where if you destroy that information system, that how we share information and how we get to the bottom line, how we get to the truth, if you destroy that, you destroy democracy.
What do you think our viewers should be doing right now then, specifically today, after they watch this video, after they pick up your book? What should they do to combat this right now?
Well, I would love them to buy the book and read it. I would love them to go to ourbiggestfight.com and learn a lot more about Project Liberty and ways that they can be engaged. But I'd also like them to start talking about it. Talk about the issues. Share with us what you disagree with in the book. Share with us what you agree with. This isn't about, selling a product here. We have a crisis. And this is ringing an alarm bell and saying we're only going to solve it if we get involved collectively. So I would say talk about it at your kitchen table. Talk about it on the sidelines of your kid's soccer match. Talk about it. Ask your schools, where your children are being educated. What are you doing about this? Well, how are we dealing with this? Why are we sitting, letting all this happen? And we know it's happening. We see now the research coming in. We know factually that harm is being done. And more importantly, we all have two eyes and two ears, right? We see it. And we have a gut. We can feel when something's wrong. And we all see it. We all feel it. We know something's wrong. And again, in the book, I make the point that there's a reason. We're not crazy. We're not all helpless here. We can convert this helpless feeling into a hopefulness if we can fix the technology and this time around get it right and put people at the center. This should be do you know in the internet today we're still not a person, we have an IP address, we're still a device. We're machines. And machines are dragging us into this future that we don't want. And we shouldn't have this helpless feeling. We need to stand up and say, no, this is just technology. It should work for us, not against us. And we shouldn't be spending all of our precious time and resources at putting out fires and mitigating damage that these platforms are doing. Let's fix how it works. Look, I'm a capitalist. I'm for everybody, creating things and making money and so forth. But I draw the line when it's destroying our democracy. when it's contaminating our information ecosystem, and when it's harming children. Enough is enough. We need to fix this, and we can. And then build a beautiful future. What's the next version of democracy look like? What does a data sharing economy look like, by the way? We haven't even talked about the economics. How is it that 5 companies are worth 10, 11, 12 trillion dollars? That's with a T, trillion. Never before in history have companies amassed so much wealth. So don't tell me the data is invaluable. Don't tell me that our information is invaluable. That's what those companies are built on. So let's change the model so that the value being created is shared by us, the people creating the data. Imagine that future for capitalism. And imagine a future where we know we're not petrified when our kids go on social media, right? And should they have a phone? Shouldn't they have a phone? And then we have to fight that battle ourselves as parents. So this is a fixable problem, but it is an urgent fix because the damage is really being done, and it didn't start yesterday. Unfortunately, this has been since the internet became a highly centralized thing 20 years ago, and these platforms became more and more powerful and actually discovered how to addict us, discovered how to manipulate us. It's become more and more powerful over the last decade. So this is you used the word insidious. It is very insidious. It's crept up on us, right? And it's crept into everything, and we need to move quickly.
I hear how passionate you are, Frank, about this issue, and I'm curious, what was the turning point for you specifically? Can you pinpoint a moment, or were you always a bit apprehensive about the internet, or what was that moment where you were like, wait a second, this does seem like it has an insidious quality?
I'd answer the question in 2 ways. One is, I mentioned earlier, I'm a builder, so I have a builder's mindset, a problem-solving mindset, and that's been my I'm a 5th generation builder, so it's deeply rooted. And I also grew up in a big Irish family in Boston, with seven of us as kids, and my parents, so 9 at the dinner table, plus guests and friends. So you can imagine those conversations. Maybe you had some of those growing up.
I'm
as
an
well.
Irish family too, so I can relate. Yes.
And so we would talk about the problems in the world, and we were, as kids generally are, you can complain pretty well and identify the problem, but not a dinner would finish without my mom saying, okay, so now what are you going to do about it? So part of this is hardwiring, and when you see a problem, you can't unsee it. Now, the second way I would answer the question is more recently. I went through a very difficult time personally in LA when I got divorced, and this was at a moment in time when Facebook was 5, 6, 7 years old. Smartphones were now in everybody's hands, and I saw and felt what it was like to be on the receiving end of social media, where you could just be attacked by anyone, and they could say anything and just beat you up and malign you, and you could do nothing about it. You just had to grin and bear it. It's a very helpless feeling when you're attacked like that, and you can't possibly say, well, that's wrong. No, that's not true. You're just there, and I don't say that so that anybody feels like I'm playing the victim card here. I'm not. It was actually a blessing in disguise. Not the personal part of it was very, very, very hard to go through that. It's very difficult when you have a personal situation like that and a family gets broken apart. But the experience was very, very formative in understanding that this is a powerful technology that's going to affect millions and potentially harm millions. So I started a public policy school in Washington, D.C. with Georgetown University, hoping to address the policies. Maybe we could get out ahead of this with better policies. And sadly, I learned that the policy apparatus cannot move fast enough to keep up with the technology. And I'll tell you one little story from a faculty member at Georgetown that she shared with me. She was doing a project. She had an idea that she could prove and show that words amplified on social media could predict large-scale physical human migration. So people that were leaving their country en masse because it was no longer livable, and they were going with nothing, right? like a bit like our forebears, right? Leaving with nothing. In our case, to America, these poor souls are leaving their beloved home and going somewhere else because they can no longer live there. In the chatter on social media, words show up. Think of it as a bubble diagram that show up prior to the move. So a faculty member said, I think I can sharpen this model, and it can be a very helpful resource for governments and humanitarian organizations. And she went to our government and she got a grant of $200,000 to sharpen the model. And then when she received the grant, she went to Twitter. She knew she had only done her work on what was publicly available. So she went to Twitter and she said, I know you have data that would be very helpful to sharpening my model. Can I have the data? It's for these poor souls, and I'm not going to commercialize it. I'm an academic, and I just want to help. And they said, yes, we have the data, and you can have it for $100,000. She said, I can't give you $100,000. It's half my budget. I won't be able to do the work. I'll have the data, but won't. And they said, well, sorry, you can't have the data. That said everything to me, because here you have the most vulnerable people in the world who are leaving their home. It's their data. It's their conversations, right? And an academic not making a lot of money, not going to commercialize it, trying to help humanity, society, develop a model that would help the Red Cross and governments and others show up and be prepared for this mass migration. And a big tech platform is saying, I own the data, and you can have it if only if you pay me. It's our data. That's the fundamental point. It shouldn't be their data. It's our data. We created it. It's about us. It's everything we are in a digital world. It's our relationships. It's our contacts. It's our preferences. It's our behaviors. It's our reactions. It's not just where we shop. So that really was a powerful story for me, because we're upside down. We need an internet where you and I decide who gets to use our data and for what purpose. And if there's a commercial gain, maybe we get to share. If it's for a common good, we're happy to share our data. Maybe it's anonymous, maybe it's not. We decide all these things. I want to be in charge. I want to own me, okay? I want to be a digital citizen, not a digital subject.
That's a theme in this conversation. It's definitely a theme in the book, is that we don't control our data. So paint us a picture here of what is that next version of the internet that you want to aspire to.
So the next version of the internet should be a version where, first of all, we're people on the internet. We're not devices or machines. And for the privilege of using the internet, we should be who we really say we are, and only one person. We shouldn't be able to have multiple personalities, and we shouldn't be a machine that's able to just spew whatever information, factual or not, onto the internet. So having an identity and being verifiable as a human being. We may not want to share exactly who we are, our name, or this or that, but what we need to share to prove I am who I am, and I'm a person, and I'm not pretending I'm someone else, and I can only be one person. Secondly, all of this massive data, this massive personal information, our so-called social graph, should be owned and controlled by us. We should decide what to do with it, and it should be portable. Next, the apps should be interoperable, so that we don't have to be stuck in one walled garden on one app to talk to somebody on that app, and therefore, well, I guess I'm going to stay on Facebook because there's 3 billion people and I'm stuck here. No, we're not stuck. Imagine where the apps are interoperable. And you're maybe too young to remember this, Brittany, but some of your listeners may remember when our phone numbers were not portable. And if we moved from New York to LA, we needed to get a new phone. Why? Because there were 7 Baby Bell carriers in this country in the 1990s that said they owned your phone number. They owned you. And if you moved to another carrier, you had to get another phone number. You couldn't take your phone with us. We started a telecom company called RCN in my family, run by my younger brother David, called RCN in 1993. We were the first in the world to bundle And so you could have high-speed internet, cable, and phone. And our biggest impediment to getting customers was the lack of phone number portability. People wanted to join, but wanted to keep their phone number. So think of your social graph as your phone number. And when phone numbers became portable in 1996, our business flourished, as did many others, because suddenly people felt they owned the number. Well, we need to own our data, own our social graph. And by the way, the carriers, the different baby bells, all became interoperable. So you're no longer stuck on one carrier in one region of the country. They all talk to each other. Well, think of apps in the future talking to each other. Think of our data not as the property of a big company, but our data as part of the internet. And so it's one big global set of data that is accessible to all of us, where we own and control our information, and we decide who gets to use it and for what purpose.
Frank McCourt, thank you so much for coming in for the really eye-opening conversation, and a big congrats to Our Biggest Fight out today. Thank you again for joining me.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.